As you may have seen, I've started making a narrow gauge railway in the field. It's going to be part of a charcoal making process, so it's for moving trees and other heavy things around. I found a simple way to make lengths of rail, and that all seems good, but now I need to join them together somehow. Fish plates. That's what I need, fish plates. They hold the rail ends together, and they hold them down onto a sleeper too. But not only that, they also need to allow for the expansion and contraction of the rails as they get hot in the summer and cold in the winter. Basically, the rails need to be able to slide in and out a little. And if you don't allow for this, apparently the tracks will be forced to bend out of shape. We can't be having any of that now, can we? This is what we came up with. No welding needed, just drilling through some angle iron and then grinding down to the holes to make slots. I could have used my plasma cutter to make enclosed oval slots very neatly, but this way just needs a drill and an angle grinder, so I'm showing you how anyone could do it. The angle iron is held in place on the sleeper with a peg. And the rail ends sit on the angle iron, and they are held in place with a bolt. And the bolt can slide a little in the slot. Okay? Does that make sense? I think so. I made extra wide sleepers for these fish plates to sit on, and the holes for the pegs are a little further apart to allow for the double thickness of the fish plates. We'll see how these do. Right then, now I need a set of points, also known as switches, because I want one rail line straight up the field, but also one that goes off sideways so I end up in the drying tunnel. So here we have the track going all the way up straightly, and it has to come around here for the other direction. So if you put, this is the normal way of making points. You have this thing that rotates around this, pivots there, and when it's down like that, then this is a parallel track, and when it's over here, then it's parallel around the curve. But the flanges of the wheel would foul the track. It would just go bang into the track if it was coming this way, because this is in the way. And over here, that bit would be in the way. There, if the train was coming down here, bang into the track just there. So, in order for these to work, the rails have to be cut away here, but they still have to hinge in the same place, so you have to bridge under the cutaway part somehow using something called a frog. That would all be possible, but there's another way of doing it. You only need one blade instead of these two. You just have one blade, and you still pivot it there at the top, so that's fine, and then you move it over here, and you get this parallel track going sideways, either here or there. But the problem is it has to be straight, which means this also has to be straight. And so it's more clunky, but it's simpler to make, so I'm going to make one of those. I'm starting with the place where both tracks meet and working out from there. I welded them together with a steel peg sticking down. and this drops into a pipe in the sleeper to keep it in place. In hindsight, I could have made this angle more acute. It would have made a smoother junction. But this is the first time I've ever made a set of points, so I'm still learning. With this V-shaped piece in position, I can now see where the parallel track goes. It's held up with pegs that go into the sleepers. Now we get to put in the single blade. It has to be self-supporting, so I'm using angle iron, but I might add extra tabs so there's no way it can fall over. I welded a pin on one end and it drops into another pipe in the sleeper. And this pin is the hinge. It should be as close as possible to the point of the V piece. It's easier to look at than to explain, isn't it? Okay, the longer the blade is, the less clunky the junction will be. I went with a 2-meter long piece, but next time I think I might go longer again. Now I can swing the blade to see how it will fit against the fixed rails and trim the end so it fits snugly. The blade gives us the point where the side track first deviates from the straight rail. I'm bending my track to the right angle, but you could cut and weld it just as well. Now then, this might not work because with a single blade points, you don't get a smooth curve, you get a couple of sharp kinks. So the wheels might get stuck. You need to be generous with the gap, especially on the pinch point where the wheels have to squeeze around the corner. The same thing happens at the other end. Make sure you've got the bend in the right place and also that you've left plenty of room in there. Basically, the bigger the wheels you are using, the more slop you will need to add on these corners. I'm adding around 1/2 inch between the rails, and I hope that's enough. This is done on real railways too. The rails are further apart on curves, and the tighter the curve, the wider apart they need to be. It's all very interesting and I'm learning a lot. As I said before, single blade points make for a clunky junction. That's why you'd never see this type of point on a passenger railway. People would get tea in their laps all the time. But for a rough and ready field railway, as this will be, then it's ideal, probably. Some people think I'm building a model railway where everything mimics a full-size railway and all is smooth and perfect. But this is going to be much more like an industrial railway where anything goes as long as the wagons stay on the rails. Higgledy-piggledy, rough and ready, but functional and very cheap. So look, we're getting somewhere, aren't we? And it's quite exciting. Beginning to look more like a real railway. Next step is a long sweeping curve and lots of straight track up into the tunnel. And that should be fun too.